I remember when we
Okay.
hung out in Warsaw that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Steven, let me introduce you, Małgosia Neczyperowicz.
Hello.
Małgosia is a graduate in Academy of Dramatic Arts in
Very
Poland,
good.
and
Yeah.
she's the former student of our Laboratorium Meisnera too. And
Great,
she
great.
wrote an MA thesis on Meisner Technique.
Excellent.
And
I like it.
I will introduce you in a short bit. But now, as I mentioned, we have a plan with our foundation, Act for Art, spreading Sanford Meisner's work to publish her work.
Great, great.
Yeah, but Gosha told me that her dream was to add another chapter to her work and to be published book. And that's why we invited you to do the interview. And thank you so much for
Well, I'm
agreeing.
honored. Thank you. Glad you
Thank
thought of
you.
me. Yeah.
So,
How do you pronounce your name?
Gosia.
Gosha.
Gosha,
Gosha?
the
Gosha.
short form.
Yes,
The short
it's the
form,
short
yeah.
form.
The short version.
Małgorzata.
Yeah, the
Gosha,
longest.
great.
Yeah. It's
Well, nice to meet you, Gosha.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Gosha, yeah, Steven Ditmyer. I don't have to introduce you to him because you know that he's a renowned Meisner Technique coach and teacher. He teaches internationally. He's also an actor, and Steven studied in the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater. Yeah, from
Yes.
what I know, and then you teach there too.
No, I don't. I mean, I used to work there years ago, and I taught at different schools here in New York City. I taught at American Academy. It's called the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Yeah, and I was asked back to the Playhouse. I graduated in '93, and then I was asked back like 12 years later to help put together the 85th or the 80th anniversary of the Playhouse.
Ah, wow,
Yeah,
amazing.
and we did a big thing, yeah, and so I put that together, and then I was working with the school to promote the school. Yeah.
Great.
So. And
Okay,
mostly, and I'm a director, is what, a lot of people say actor, and I act occasionally now, but what I really do is I'm a director, acting coach.
Okay. And how did you begin your adventure with Meisner's technique?
With when I first learned it, or when I first studied with him, or years later when teaching, do you mean?
Beginning, so the first time.
Yeah, I was in college, I was in university, and in Florida, and I was a musician, and I thought I was going to be a professional musician. And as I was, and I had a band, and I was studying music, and then I'll make it a short story, but I actually was asked to be on that show Miami Vice. Do you remember Miami Vice, the show that was filmed in Florida? And I got to do a small little thing on it because I met the casting director, this and that, and because of, just because of my look, of how I looked. And I did that, and I watched them, the actors, I watched them film all day, and I was so interested in it. And I said, wow, this acting thing looks really, I love music. And I always, when I was performing music, I was really putting a show on as I performed, and I said, wow, this acting thing looks really cool. And I asked this casting director, this agent I had for my band, I said, hey, do you know anything about this acting thing? Because she was an agent for actors too. And she said, yeah, you should study the school, the college, the university you're at. They have a whole theater department. You should take some classes. I was in the business school end of it. So I started taking some classes. I say that because I studied there. I started taking acting classes in university. And I was very lucky that I studied with this, one of the most amazing actors in the world named Zoe Caldwell. and four-time Tony Award-winning Zoe Caldwell that was with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and she won many Tonys on Broadway, and she studied and she did every time she acted, she won every award in London and New York. She was studying with me. I mean, I was studying with her in university, and her husband was the president, very famous producer. He produced all of Arthur Miller's plays. He was the president of Neighborhood Playhouse in New York City. And when I
Right.
stayed with her, she said, she saw I really didn't know anything when I was a young actor what I was doing. I had no clue what I was doing. But I had enthusiasm, you know. I was really passionate about it, and I wanted to learn, but I had no clue what I was doing. And she said, she took me aside. She said, Steven, you should go to New York City and study with Sanford Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse. And I hadn't heard of him before. You know, I was young. I was in my 20s, early 20s in Florida. And she said that, and I just,
What year was it?
this is 1990.
1990. Okay,
Yeah.
7 years before his he's passing.
Yeah,
passed
he
away,
passed in 97 and 19, and she said, you need to go and study with him. And because it was Zoe Caldwell, this, you know, this incredible actress, I said, yes, whatever you say, you know. And I went to New York, and she did a recommendation letter for me, and you had to interview at the time. It was really neat at the time. One thing different about Meisner too is different than all other schools. You didn't audition. You didn't audition because he didn't care how well you could do an audition, how well you could perform a monologue. You know, he said, we need to talk just for a half an hour. And
Wow.
there's famous stories, you know, because he said, let's talk, and let's see, let's not only, you know, I want to hear, why do you want to, you say you want to learn about acting, and you want to, you know, become a stronger actor, and you want to come study with me, and I want to learn about you, he said, and you learn about me. And not only, let's see, are you a good fit for me? Am I a good fit for you? And there's famous stories. The famous actor Dustin Hoffman, you know, did his interview with Meisner, and Meisner didn't accept him.
Oh my, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, Meisner didn't accept him. He said he was too quirky, too nervous, too, you know, it's like, no. And, you know, it's just because Meisner doesn't accept you, you can still go on and be a great actor, you know, you have, you know, which he did. Uh, but yeah, so it was an interview, no audition at all. Nowadays, they do an interview and an audition, and mostly they do the audition because they want to see that how well you speak English. That's basically what the how well you can speak English. But it's all about the interview. So I interviewed, and I got accepted. And I think the letter from Zoe Caldwell helped, you know, and that was in So I started in '91 studying with Sandy, and it was Sandy, and he was older at the time. We were, believe it or not, the last class to have him. This was the last class to study with him at the Playhouse, was 91 to 92. We had a main teacher, and he was, I believe, the strongest Meisner teacher in the world. You've probably heard of William Esper,
Yeah.
you know, who passed away recently. And William Esper and this man that I studied with, Richard Penter. His name was Richard Penter, Pinter. The two of them both had studied and were Meisner's assistant for many, many years. And Esper left the Playhouse and went and he's taught at a college, a university in New Jersey called Rutgers University. And that's how he got known, because he developed the theater department at this university in New Jersey. And Pinter stayed at the Playhouse. So Pinter was the main teacher at the Neighborhood Playhouse, and Esper was this teacher at this university, Rutgers. And they were the two top Meisner teachers, I believe, in the world. And I was lucky, so I had Pinter and Meisner, you know, because Meisner wasn't there every day, but he was there every 2 days, 3 days. Yeah.
You are an actor. Do you still perform?
Uh, Occasionally. I didn't, you know, I was an actor in New York City after I graduated studying with Meisner. I then studied a year with Uda Hagen, a great teacher named Uda Hagen. Very lucky. And that's a whole nother thing I talk to some
I
people
have
about.
the book of Hagen.
Yeah. So I studied with Uda. How lucky. I had Meisner
Yes,
and then
you're
Uda.
very lucky.
And also I tell people, it was very lucky, Judy, that I had it in that order. It would have been, because Meisner, as you know, and a lot of us that teach Meisner, and you know, I always tell people, all my students, you have to do different techniques. You know, I don't go around saying Meisner is the only way. We have to be like sponges, right? We have to take in all these different things, and ultimately, it's what works for you. But I teach Meisner all over the world because it's the strongest foundation that I have found from doing all different techniques. And you know, I use all kinds of different things, but I always, as a director and as an actor, keep coming back to the Meisner work. I'll use the little things I learned from Uta Hagen, things I learned from Zoe, things I learned, but the basis of acting, the foundation, I have found there's nothing stronger as for the foundation. Everything keeps coming back to Meisner.
Yeah, and also what the actors that come to our studio say is that it's like very consistent system. It's a whole system, and you go step by step, and
Yeah,
nobody
yeah.
actually teaches you this
Right.
in the
But yeah,
dramatic academy or
yes.
acting school.
A school, universities and schools, their goal is to give you a well-rounded education. So in doing that, and in many acting academies and this and that, so what you do is you get a taste of this, a taste of, you do some Meisner, you do some Gutowski, you do Suzuki, you do all these different things to give you a well-rounded education, to give you a whole bunch of tools, right? The
Mhm.
problem is there's a pro and con to that. The pro is you get to learn some different things, right? The con to that is you never really go down a full process, you know, and it actually, you know, it actually in the long run doesn't help you, I find. There's no, I mean, from my experience, I'm not, and I tell my students, I don't say don't go to university, I say yes, do, for life experience and to learn different things. But if you really want to really learn about acting, it's not possible getting little touches, little things of different. You have to go through a full process, which you have, you know, discovered. It's a whole different thing to go through that process. It's a whole different story. Yeah.